speech and press. Free expression. It was once said that action is louder than words. But is this always true? Words that have been said or written has influenced so much, and the consequences are powerful. The first important amendment gives us the right of free speech and press. Our opinions are protected but some restrictions have been placed. Some of those restrictions are using false advertisement, offensive words, the printing and distributing improper materials, and words that cause others to create crimes that will affect society or hurt the government. No person has the right to libel or slander another.
And that's libel. So make sure you guys are clear. I know you should be with all the vocab words, but be clear as far as which one is libel, which one is slander.
Libel is the false and malicious use of printed words, and then slander is of spoken words.
The seditious speech. Sedition is when you try to overpower the government by force or disrupt its lawful activities by violent acts. Seditious speech is the advocating or urging of such conduct. This kind of speech is not protected by the First Amendment.
So are there examples of seditious speech that you could share with us? Or
like if we don't like the president, we're like, let's go overthrow him, let's gather up and beat him up, and that could be seditious.
Or like, let's go over there and burn the White House down.
okay,
That would be like a violent act, so it's not protected.
right, yeah.
But like these people can meet in town halls and discuss about like not liking the government, right?
Oh, so, yeah. Well, maybe. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for distinguishing that, Sergio. Maybe they don't want. Let's say you brought up President Obama. They're not saying let's go do anything to him, but they can gather together and say the policies which he's trying to pass or that he's doing are totally against what we believe in. Here's why. And this you make some arguments. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But if you talk about killing them, then that's
Right. Yeah.
something else.
You can hate the policies, but you can't hate on the man. Well, I mean, you can't threaten the man.
But you can't hate the player.
I knew you were going to go there.
The Alien and Sedition Act. This act gave the right to the government to deport undesirable crimes that would do outrageous, false, and malicious criticism to the government. This act was unconstitutional, but once it was over, those who did wrong were excused.
And who is it that passed the Alien and Sedition Acts, Jesus?
You know what? You write that down.
I'll give you a clue. He was the second president of the United States. John Adams, very good. And he felt he had good reason for passing this because, remember, we are fragile. He was the second president. Our country was still very young, and there were a lot of people who wanted us getting involved in, the French Revolution, and they were fomenting, all these things, and things were being said in the newspaper which he felt weren't true. So he said, that he had the right to shut down that kind of speech. But Thomas Jefferson, who succeeded him, his philosophy was what? I may totally disagree with you. I may totally despise what you have to say, but I will defend to my death the right for you to say it. That was the thinking there. And so when Jefferson came in after Adams, he said, get rid of this nonsense.
The Sedition Act of 1970. This law was part of the Espionage Act of 1917 and was passed during World War I. This act prohibits the encouragement of disloyalty, interfering in the armed force, or publishing false and abusive language about the form of government in the United States. More than 2,000 people were convicted. An officer of the Socialist Party, Charles
Schenck,
was one of them. He had been telling thousands of men to not draft.
So let me ask you this question. If this was law, the Sedition Act of 1917, why did the government not use this Sedition Act of 1917 when we had a whole bunch of young men during the Vietnam War who were, you know, very much opposed to it, not only verbally, but physically, and a lot of them ran from the country. I mean, people like Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton ran from the U.S. Because he didn't want to go fight in Vietnam. Why did we not use this Sedition Act during the Vietnam War?
Because the whole country opposes that war, pretty much. Well, like most of the people weren't in favor of that war.
Okay, there was definitely a large segment of the population which was opposed to it, but there were still many who were very supportive of the military and those who were elected. So why don't we do that now?
Maybe because it prohibits the encouragement of disloyalty.
I don't know. I'm just throwing that out for you guys to think about.
Wouldn't it be kind of seditious to encourage people to fight? In a way. Even if it went for the country, I mean, like, if I was trying to tell a soldier to fight somebody else.
Well, the definition of sedition is what? That you are actively trying to undermine or overthrow the U.S. government, right? That's what the definition is.
So in a way, they weren't trying to overthrow the government. They were trying to overthrow the fact that of what the government was doing. So.
Oh, okay. That's a good distinction, Joey.
The SMIC Act of 1940. This act made it a crime to overthrow the government, to distribute any material that teaches or advises violent overthrows, or to knowingly belong to any group with such a name. 11 Communist Party leaders were convicted of this crime, but has said that this law was unconstitutional. The court disagreed and had to modify Justice Holmes' doctrine many times in later years, so enforcement would be difficult. Obscenity?
Yes, obscenity, that's correct.
Obscenity is not protected by the First and 14th Amendments. Congress started to create laws that prevents mailing of obscene or inappropriate matter. The court had laid out 3 parts to determine if something is obscene or not. It's illegal for adult bookstores or any such to mail sent across states' lines or import.
Okay, so the first thing is you can't be mailing to other states.
Bad stuff. Yeah.
Court also gives each city the right to locate any type of adult entertainment establishments within 1,000 feet of a residential zone, church, park, or school, but cannot prohibit the establishments of one. Later, court gave the right to cities to ban taverns, bars, and anything that involves nude dancing. Most recent law is the Children's Internet Protection Act, which blocks computers' access to lewd sites.
You understand what they mean by that last one, right?
Yeah.
There are real sicko perverts out there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let me ask you, what is obscene in LeGrand or Planada versus what would be considered obscene in, say, San Francisco or Las Vegas? Is there any difference in terms of the definition of
they have
obscenity?
nude beaches over
Hang on,
there.
Lenny, go ahead.
In San Francisco, where like people are allowed to walk naked, but here that would be not in certain places, like you said.
Okay.
But here that wouldn't be okay. Like on Grand Plana, if somebody was walking around naked.
Any other differences in obscenity in these Vegas, San Francisco versus the Grand Planada?
Well, these are like towns, not much cities, and cities have a lot to offer, and they're more like for business and stuff, so maybe that's why they provide all those things around it, because you're near a church or schools and stuff.
Right, but what would be considered obscene here that might not be considered obscene in San Francisco or Las Vegas?
Those buses going around?
Okay, so advertisements on buses or
Or people
billboards.
handing out the cards?
Oh, yeah. Talking about Vegas?
Yeah.
So why is that? Who gets to determine then what's obscene and what's not obscene? Who makes that determination?
The city.
People who live in the
state.
city.
Yeah, so you see what the Supreme Court did? It left it in the hands of the people at the local level to determine what they think is obscene and what's not obscene. What do you think about that? Do you think that was a constitutional ruling?
Not appropriate.
Yeah, that's good, because
Yeah.
at least we're able to determine what we want to be seen.
The
around
majority
with,
will.
as opposed to, like say, I mean, maybe they.
In
that's what
theory,
they
the
want.
majority is going to choose the best option for them.
It's a democracy, man.
Because generally speaking, at least hopefully still today, families want to protect their what?
Their families.
Their families, their children, right?
Yeah, they're right.
Prior restraint. Prior restraint is a stop to a material that would be published or broadcasted if it has false or harmful words. In the Constitution, government cannot publish an idea before it's expressed, but after. In a case called Neer versus Minnesota, the publication of malicious, scandalous, and defamatory press was prohibited. The court guarantees free press, but couldn't do a prior restraint. Only if the publication had obscene or violent messages to the people. Another case was New York Times versus United States, the Pentagon Papers. This was a stolen document that was leaked through a newspaper, and government couldn't do a prior restraint on the publication since the court didn't see anything wrong with it.
So in other words, it sounds like it's pretty difficult for the government to stop the free expression of ideas through our media, right?
So that's like the idea of stopping an idea from being created in the head. Would it be?
Right. Now, let me give you an example where I am almost 100% certain that the courts would step in and say the government has a right. What if the San Francisco Chronicle was about to publish the locations of all of our nuclear silos?
That wouldn't happen.
Why not?
That would be like going against the government, as in releasing some vital information that might result in affecting the country as a whole.
Would they be
Damaging security.
Yeah. Would they be justified in stopping that?
Yeah. Just like that one case where a Navy SEAL wrote a book and didn't get it clear with the government.
Because it might have
Because
operational...
information of how they do their operations, it might damage future operations.
And put servicemen at risk, right?
Put them at risk.
Good example, Sergio.
Classification.
That falls into confidentiality.
I can move on.
Alright. The media.
Can't see shit.
Confidentiality. Okay. News reporters, journalists, and news organizations feel a right to keep certain sources to themselves. Some of them even denied giving sources to the court and have gone into jail for it. Now, 30 states have passed shield laws that gives protection to reporters from revealing confidential information and sources. Just like Sergio said.
Motion pictures. The Supreme Court forbid films that weren't moral, educational, or harmless and amusing characters. States and communities started to make programs to ban certain films. The court then, in 1952, had then said liberty of expression by means of motion picture is guaranteed by the First and 14th Amendments. Radio and television. Radio and television are the most regulated since it gets the most limited First Amendment protection. It is also different because it is distributed by public airwaves. Broadcasting is more of the right of the viewers and listeners and less of the broadcasters. Congress cannot censor things on the radio and television before it broadcasts. Federal Communications Commission prohibits inappropriate language as well. The court has a goal to keep racy channels away from the children in Congress, then move them to late night hours.
That's true. We're getting late night shows. Some wild ones.
Symbolic speech. Symbolic speech is the expression of conduct, but not all types of conduct are symbolic speech, like killing or robbery, or other serious crimes. Picketing is patrolling of a business site by workers who are on strike. Picketing is protected by the First and 14th Amendment, but some picketing can be involved in violence, and those acts can be restricted. Other symbolic speech cases. Burning draft cards is one type of act that is not a symbolic speech and violates a federal law because the Supreme Court says that the act is a conduct of expressing an idea and not a speech. But burning a cross is a symbolic speech according to the court, since it is not aimed on anyone. Flag burning and burning of the American flag is protected by the First and 14th Amendments, but this issue caused many criticism towards Johnson. Congress then passed the Flag Protection Act of 1989, which prohibits the flag from being physically defiled, burned, left on the floor or ground, or trampled shall be fined under this title or imprisoned. This act didn't last long and was defeated in 1990.
So, are we to this day not able to go into the flag, or can we now something?
That's a great question. So, answer Joey's question.
Yes, we can, because then that would be going against what like we believe in.
No, but it said that it was defeated in 1990.
Yeah.
Say that again, Aguilera?
It said that it was defeated in 1990.
What was defeated?
The act of...
Not burning the flag?
To think of it being legal, right?
What about burning money? I know you could get in trouble for burning money.
So let's stay on this question. It's a legit question, which is, can you burn the United States flag?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, we're not talking about the ceremonial, because once a U.S. flag is tattered and it's, no longer in good shape, there is a nice, and I've done this because I grew up being a Boy Scout, so it's a very nice ceremony. You have a fire going, there's the color guard, there's four, you say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then someone gets at each of the four corners, and the flag catches on fire in the middle, and then simultaneously everyone flips in the corner, and the flag goes up. What we're talking about here is actual where people do not like what's going on in the country, so they take the flag, they light it on fire, and they start whipping it around like this, or stomping on it. So the question is, Joey had, is that legal to do that today?
You could probably get in trouble if you get caught burning the
People
flag.
will look at it bad, but it is because...
But it isn't illegal.
It is not illegal. It is not illegal.
That would be like going against what the country believes in as in being free.
Then
But
again,
that's
it's a
just
private
freedom of
property,
speech,
right?
right?
If it's your flag.
Yeah, if it's your flag, as long as you're not like hurting anyone or catching anything on fire, you can do that. However, that's not the right note. However, I would not advise doing that around someone who's in the military or a family member who have folks in the military.
Alberto Marquez to the office. Alberto Marquez to the office.
Okay, pick up your